Welcome to the Nerdy Multiverse. House of the Dragon is back with the 10th episode of the series, and this episode being the final one of the first season. This finale really brought a very emotional, action-packed, and incredible closing to the first season, and it also had a lot of callbacks to the books and nods to the future of this storyline, and of course, we have got to talk about all of that and break down the 10th episode titled The Black Queen. Before we get started with this episode though, we want to give you all a spoiler warning. As we break down this episode, there will be loads of spoilers, of course, whether it's for the final episode itself, the original Game of Thrones show, the source material, or the previous episodes of this season. You have been warned. Now that all of that stuff is out of the way, let's get started with the episode. So, with the title of this episode being The Black Queen, this resembles how we move on to the side of the storyline of what is referred to as the Blacks, which includes Daemon, his children, the Strong Boys, Rhaenyra, amongst others, and the Black Queen part refers to Rhaenyra herself. We open up this episode itself, panning over the painted table of Dragonstone, and this table has the map of Westeros on it, providing whoever is in possession of said table a great map for strategic methods in war and conflict. This table being another location or object that we were able to see in the original Game of Thrones series as well. And this table was made by Aegon the Conqueror, having the map of Westeros put on it and where he planned his conquest of the realm. Lucerys stands over the painted table, touching the spot on the table that marks the island of Driftmark, symbolizing the conflict within himself and for what is to possibly come for him. Standing over this table, just like how his brother Jacaerys was a few episodes ago when he was learning his High Valyrian, and Rhaenyra comes in to speak with Lucerys about Corlys's state and whether or not he will survive his injuries, as Luke is worried about becoming the heir to Driftmark and ruling it, as he believes that he will just ruin everything for the kingdom that has the largest naval fleet in Westeros, because he gets seasick every time that he sets sail, and someone who cannot control that or a ship should not lead the greatest naval fleet in the realm, saying that the throne of Driftmark and its leadership should have very well gone to his uncle and Corlys's brother Vaemond, but of course that's not possible, as he was beheaded by Daemon after Vaemond spoke treason and called Luke and his brothers bastards. Rhaenyra tries to reason with him, give him hope and care for him, and build a similar relationship with her son that she had with her own father Viserys, as he always gave her advice and stood with her and defended her to the very end. Daemon and Rhaenyra stand in the room of the painted table, and Rhaenys arrives to Dragonstone after escaping King's Landing from the last episode, still wearing the dragon scale type armor, and she comes to inform Rhaenyra of what has happened, that her father has passed and the Hightowers have pushed for their side to take the throne, and now they are going to come after her to remove any contenders to the throne. After hearing that Rhaenys was locked in her room, Daemon goes right into assumptions and assumes that the Hightowers killed Viserys purposely and that he was slain, rather than dying of his illness and natural causes. Seemingly angry, this shows the beginning of what Daemon's emotions and goals will be like in this episode, being more harsh and quick to go to war. Daemon also questions Rhaenys on why she didn't just burn the opposing side when she had the chance in the last episode. The question that many fans of the show may have themselves as well. But she says that the war for the throne is not hers to begin, and I also believe that she did this because she does not want to get involved or her family to get involved with this conflict right away. The news of Rhaenyra's father dying and her throne being taken away from her shocks her, and she ends up going into labor. While Rhaenyra is struggling and in great pain while in labor, her husband Daemon is meeting with different lords and the king's guards that are on their side, already planning a war and to send ravens to their closest allies to be ready. Jace and Luke train on the beaches alongside another king's guard, much like how they trained together when they were younger with Sir Criston Cole and Harwin Strong. And Luke gets knocked down by Jace, foreshadowing what is to come and also resembling how he is not ready for any of this or the future of these houses and their battles. This training was something that was much needed for these two, as now they're enemies with people such as Sir Criston Cole and Aemon Targaryen, who are extremely capable fighters. Rhaenys comes out and tells them both that their mother wishes to see both of them, and they walk into Rhaenyra's quarters while she is still struggling in labor, and she tells them of what has happened, and Jace seems ready to go and to deal with these issues right away, much like how Daemon is right now, but she reminds him of his importance and duties, and that any titles of hers he is the heir of now, as he is the oldest child of hers. While they were in their mother's quarters, Jace asked his mother Rhaenyra where Daemon was, and she told him that she did not know, and that he was most likely stirring up trouble and causing chaos, once again playing to how fast Daemon was ready to wage war. As he is planning, they mention the island of Evenfall Hall, which is where Corlys Velaryon is as of right now, and this is what is the island home to the House of Tarth, and of course Brienne of Tarth from the original series, sending ravens to different houses throughout the realm, such as the House of Darkland and the House of Massey, who is located on a peninsula in the waters right by King's Landing and Dragonstone, and their position would be very important if they were to cut off King's Landing's naval capabilities. Daemon tells them to have guards patrol near the waters of Dragonstone to look for any boats that may sail there, as if they were to go after Rhaenyra right now, it would be by stealth rather than in full force, most likely to keep everything quiet rather than making it loud, so that they can further hide what they have done just to get Aegon on the throne. Daemon and Rhaenyra's side and Dragonstone do not have a large army as of right now, so they cannot cover every angle around Dragonstone, but he orders for the Dragon Keepers to be brought in as well, as they are capable fighters, and they also have great weapons, if you don't know, that are made out of dragon glass, which if you don't know also, dragon glass is what is capable of destroying White Walkers. And Rhaenyra was exactly right of Daemon's whereabouts, as he is still planning with the others in the room of the painted table, and Jacaerys walks in on this and actually stands his ground and stands up to Daemon, as Rhaenyra has not given permission for any of this to happen, and she should be the one they are all listening to right now, as she is the queen. Daemon doesn't really budge with this, and he tells Jace to come with him so that he can show him what real loyalty is, as they go outside and Daemon has his dragon Caraxes stare down two of the king's guards that are there and have them swear fealty to Queen Rhaenyra, and if they don't and change their sides later on, he assures them that they will die screaming. While Rhaenyra is in labor, we see flashes of her dragon Syrax, and this could very well be representing how the dragon is angry with the one who claimed her for having another child, and this bringing in a sort of curse for her to have a miscarriage. Or this could be a little nod to the books where this happened, as instead of her having a miscarriage, she gave birth to a child that came out with dragon scales and a dragon tail, which is exactly also how Daenerys' baby was described to come out as in the original series. After the miscarriage, Rhaenyra wraps the baby in the cloth, just how Viserys was wrapped in the last episode after he died, and the Silent Sisters are here as well to help get the child ready for its funeral. And once again, the Silent Sisters are a part of an order that serves the church, and they follow the stranger being one of the gods of the seven and the one who resembles death. They have the funeral for the child, and it is burnt in candle fire, the Targaryen way of burial, to be burned. And this is very reminiscent of what happened in the first episode when Rhaenyra had to go to the funeral of her mother and newborn brother. Ser Erryk shows up to the funeral, showing his loyalty to Rhaenyra and her cause and her heirship to the throne, as he has brought Viserys' crown, which was also worn by Jaehaerys, the previous king before Viserys, and it is likely that Ser Erryk took the crown from Viserys' body, much like what happened in the books. Daemon takes the crown and looks at it for a few seconds, listening to Ser Erryk's oath, and this could be him grieving his brother's death, but also resembling how he himself was not named heir to the throne by his brother Viserys. Daemon crowns Rhaenyra, and everybody at the funeral kneels down and shows their loyalty to their queen, besides Rhaenys, who stays standing in the background. After the crowning, everyone begins planning for the war that is likely to come, but Rhaenyra still wants to be cautious and not to go right into conflict, as she does not want to be the Queen of Ashes, the same exact thing that Daenerys said in the original show. Going around the painted table, they put down different sigils on the map. The sigil of the Targaryen's house is put on Dragonstone, and the sigil of the Hightowers is put on King's Landing, burning a fire underneath the table, which causes the table's map to light up. Trying to figure out who their allies are and who will end up joining them, Daemon mentions the City Watch and that he has some good friends still in it, but not in a great number, but still allies nonetheless, and this is of course because he was the Lord Commander of the City Watch earlier in the season, and the men were extremely loyal to him. Mentioning whom they should send ravens to, such as the House of Celtigar, the rulers of the Claw Isle, and the Lord of House Celtigar in the books, does go on to be Rhaenyra's Master of Coin. They also mention House Stanton, who are located at Rook's Rest, which is relatively right under Claw Isle, and these locations being very close to Dragonstone and Driftmark, as well as being located right on the edges of Blackwater Bay, which would also give them even more naval advantage over King's Landing. Most likely having no allies in the west whatsoever due to the Lannisters not being loyal to them, as Tywin Lannister has served alongside Otto Hightower for far too long to switch sides now. So they need to gather up support in different locations such as the east and the north. The east being the Stormlands, the area near King's Landing, and the Riverlands. The Stormlands being the region home to places such as Storm's End and Evenfall Hall. Storm's End being the home to the Baratheons and Boris Baratheon at this time, and like I mentioned earlier, Evenfall Hall is the home to the House of Tarth. Of course, King's Landing is home to the Greens right now, so they will find no allies there as of right now, other than the few that may still be in the City Watch. And the Riverlands are home to House Tully, which is where Rhaenyra's own mother is from, and where Catelyn Stark from the original series came from, so the support of the Tullys is highly likely. They also mention the Vale of Arryn and the Eyrie. The Vale and the Eyrie is where Tyrion Lannister was held prisoner by Lysa Arryn, the sister of Catelyn Stark, and being home to the trapdoor where Littlefinger pushed Lysa Arryn down to her death in the original series. They also mention Winterfell and the Stark House, and how they never forget or break an oath, and the Starks during the Dance of the Dragons in the books played a very crucial role in the war. As of now, they lack a large army, but they have more dragons, as they have Syrax, who is Rhaenyra's dragon, Caraxes, who is Daemon's, Meleys, the Red Queen, who is Rhaenys's, and if they have the support of Driftmark, they will have the support of Meleys as well. Vermax, who is Jace's, Arax, who is Luke's, and Moondancer, who is Bela's. But they also have unclaimed dragons, being Seasmoke, who was Laenor's, Vermithor, and Silverwing, who were the dragons of King Jaehaerys and his wife when he was still alive. Daemon also mentions that they have another 3 dragons on Dragonstone who are wild, like Sheep Stealer, the Cannibal, and Gregos. Now, if you think of Vagar and how big she is, well, the Cannibal is around the same size of her. However, they call this dragon the Cannibal because it is so large that it likes to feast on other dragons, and this dragon is also unclaimable. A boat ends up sailing the shores of Dragonstone, and they mention how the sigil on the boat that they are flying is a 3-headed green dragon, which represents the House of Hightower and Targaryen being mixed together, and how that is who rules the 7 kingdoms as of right now. Otto Hightower shows up to Dragonstone, and he is met on the bridge by Daemon, and both of them have some of their men with them. This scene is practically identical to the one in previous episodes when Otto and Rhaenyra showed up to Dragonstone to confront Daemon for stealing a dragon egg from King's Landing. And just like that scene, Rhaenyra flies in on Syrax, landing right behind Otto and his men, but this time around, Otto is her enemy rather than what seemed like an ally. Otto ends up giving Rhaenyra a ripped out page of the book 10,000 Ships, which is a long story about Queen Rhaenyra being the same name that Arya Stark named her own direwolf after in the original series. This page being the exact same page that Rhaenyra ripped out of the book and gave to Alicent in a previous episode when they were children and close friends, rather than now being near rivals. Daemon is ready to get this started already, insulting Otto and the king Aegon, who Otto keeps going on about, and how he was crowned with the crown that Aegon the Conqueror had, and how he also wields the Conqueror's sword, Blackfire, drawing their swords on each other, and you can see that the twin brothers of Eric with an A and Eric with an E are standing on opposing sides. This message from Alicent actually seems to calm Rhaenyra down even more and continue to be cautious about going into the war. They continue to plan at the painted table, but Daemon confronts Rhaenyra about how she is starting to sound like her father Viserys, always looking for a peaceful way out of of things. She clears the room and she starts to tell Daemon of the Song of Ice and Fire, of course being the title of the book that Game of Thrones is based off of, but also the prophecy of the prince that was promised, Aegon Targaryen, who of course ends up being none other than Jon Snow, and how this prince that was promised will unite the realm against the cold, being the White Walkers. Rhaenyra explains how this prophecy is where their power comes from and how this is their house's true mission in the realm, but Daemon takes this as a load of nonsense and chokes Rhaenyra and tells her that that is not what makes Targaryens powerful or kings, but dragons do. Rhaenys meets with her husband Corlys after all of these years of not seeing him, and she confronts him for abandoning her after everything that happened, being the supposed death of Laenor that was of course faked, but they do not know this, and the death of their daughter Laena, deciding who they will align their allegiances with, and this being with Queen Rhaenyra as Corlys and Rhaenys walk into the room of the painted table and announce that they will stand with Rhaenyra, and so will the largest naval fleet in all of Westeros. Corlys also mentions another advantage that has come to them as they have conquered the Stepstones and are also placing a garrison of their own there, which was also actually suggested by Rhaenyra in a previous episode when she sat on the council. The conquering of the Stepstones gives them control over the naval sea. Needing to gather the other houses who still have yet to announce their allegiances, Rhaenyra sends her two boys, Jace and Luke, to go meet with the different lords, sending Luke south to Storm's End to meet with Borys Baratheon and remind him of the oath that his father gave to Rhaenyra when she was named heir by Viserys all the way back in episode 1. And Jace being sent to the Vale of Arryn, and most importantly also being sent to Winterfell, as he is closer to the age of the Lord of Winterfell at this time, who is Cregan Stark, a very, very important figure in the books during this time, and regarded as one of the greatest Starks of all time. He and his army, which is actually one of the most feared ones in all of Westeros, played a pivotal role in the books. Cregan and Jace grew a liking to one another and were the two that actually went on to form an oath of brotherhood known as the Pact of Ice and Fire, swearing oath to their mother to go as messengers and not warriors, and to not get involved with any fighting that may happen during their visits there, a big foreshadowing of what is to come. As the boys take off on their dragons, as well as Rhaenys, who said she was going to scout, the music playing here is actually one of the themes that played with Daenerys Targaryen in Game of Thrones. Daemon walks through dark halls, singing in High Valyrian to calm a dragon that resides down here, and to most likely claim it or wake it and bring it to their side at least. This dragon most likely being Vermithor, who was the dragon of King Jaehaerys before his death, making him one of the older ones to live during the series and time. Also being one of the largest dragons and oldest dragons in Westeros at this time as well, alongside Vhagar and the Cannibal. But as Team Black does have more dragons, they do not have as many dragon riders, so somebody else goes on to ride Vermithor, at least in the books, somebody known as Hugh Hammer. Luke flies over and arrives at Storm's End, but as he gets there, he sees that Vhagar is there as well, meaning that Aemond must be as well, and he has beaten Luke there to sway more allies to his brother's side. Being much like most Baratheons in Game of Thrones, Borys is very loud, outgoing, and extremely arrogant, as he completely casts aside his father's loyalties and the oath that he gave, just to have more benefits in whoever side he joins in this conflict. As Aemond has given Borys a benefit, and this being a joining of houses, as Aemond has agreed to marry one of the 4 daughters that Borys has, and Borys asks Luke if he will do the same to give him benefits to joining Rhaenyra, but Luke cannot do this as he is already set to marry Baela. After being practically declined and rejected by Borys Baratheon, Luke is set to leave Storm's End to inform his mother of this, but before he leaves, Aemond tries to start a fight with him and demands him to lose an eye. Revenge for Luke taking his eye back in the previous episodes, an eye for an eye. Aemond takes his eye patch off, revealing that he has replaced the eye he lost with a sapphire gem, which is exactly what he did in the books as well. After Luke Luke leaves on his dragon Arax and flying through the storm, Aemond follows him on Vhagar to try and scare him, making Luke and Arax look like ants to Vhagar and Aemond as they fly above them, outmaneuvering Vhagar as Luke's dragon is much smaller and is able to fly through the canyons to escape. During this chase, we can hear both Aemond and Luke struggling to control their dragons, and this really coincides with what Viserys told Rhaenyra in previous episodes, telling her that it is all an illusion, that the dragons serve Targaryens. As Arax disobeys Luke and flies at Vhagar, attacking him in fear, which causes Vhagar to lose control and stop serving Aemond and retaliate, going to attack Luke and Arax, which ends up in Vhagar killing both Arax and Luke with a single bite, showing just how dangerous Vhagar is and how dangerous a war with dragons could end up being for those that may not be ready for it. After this happens, Aemond looks down at what happened as the pieces of Arax and Luke that are left fall from the sky, but in here, he looks shocked and worried about what just happened and what he just caused, which is actually a big change to what happened in the books, as in the Battle of Storm's End in the books, Aemond very well did intend on taking out Luke and his dragon, but here he seems remorseful and regretful of what he ended up doing by mistake. And now, the actions of an arrogant man like Aemond is going to lead into a war now, as this is truly the beginning of the Dance of the Dragons. The death of Lucerys is what eventually turns Rhaenyra's ambitions of staying peaceful all the way to the other side and going right into the war. Daemon walks into the room of the painted table as Rhaenyra and the others are seemingly still planning, as we cannot hear anything but a looming sort of sad music, and we can assume that this is where she is told about what happened to Luke. Stumbling for only a moment with shock, she stops and slowly turns around and looks directly into the camera with pure heartbreak and anger in her eyes, showing that this is now war and not peace. This shot directly mirroring the shot of Rhaenyra looking straight into the camera at the end of the first episode after she was named heir by her father, and this is where the finale ends. This was an incredible end to the first season of House of the Dragon, and it really leaves you wanting that second season already. This finale was a very emotional one, and the stakes were greatly increased, as was the conflict, as we are now really heading into the Dance of the Dragons, and I believe that this was a great final entry for the first season, and it ended off on a good note, and a powerful one at that. Overall, this first season was absolutely amazing. Every episode felt so strong, and every episode had good writing, good acting, beautiful design and cinematography, and good pacing. There was really not a single bad episode to me personally, and I enjoyed every single one of them as well as this finale. I cannot wait to see when we will be getting the second season for this series and where the second season will bring us and start us off with the storyline. With our quick thoughts out of the way, we want to know what you thought of the finale and the first season as a whole, so let us know your thoughts in the comments. With all of that being said, that about does it for House of the Dragon for now. Thank you all for watching. If you are new here and want more nerdy content just like this, make sure to sub to the channel with notifications on, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like on it. As I always say, we will see you all the next time that we go through and explore the nerdy multiverse.